My name is Ramani Varanasi, and I'm the managing director of Revive Advisors, an advisory group that I founded where I serve as a trusted advisor to executive management supporting corporate strategy, fundraising, corporate development, and anything that's involved in company building and running. I'm also co-founder and prior CEO of a company called Xbiotics, focused on antibiotic drug development. But we're not here to talk about me today. We are here to continue our discussion and dialogue with the Lioness magazine. As you all may know, Lioness is a premier media outlet for female entrepreneurs, giving women the latest news, tools, and resources to launch their startups and run their startups. We cover timely topics, and I'm here really representing the biopharma life sciences field. I've been in the field for 25 years, and so I'm here happy to be representing the field and talking to some great entrepreneurs and women who are driving change and instituting change in our industry. Over the past few months, I've had the pleasure of conversing with several other entrepreneurs who've been successful in establishing and growing their businesses in this field. And today, I'm joined by Missy Fulton, the CEO of Chameleon Strategies. She is a creative global employment lawyer and senior HR executive. And you're not only an entrepreneur, Missy, but you also help other entrepreneurs. And we're going to talk about the female side of things because that's what Lioness magazine is focused on. Although your business spans the gamut of, men and women, and you support everyone out there trying to build their businesses. So welcome, Missy.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Super excited. Really passionate to be able to talk about being able to set early stage life sciences companies up for success, and especially female CEOs, which I had been warned early days when I was launching my company that why would I want to create such a unique niche and really, lose potentially part of my target sector. And there really is a method to my madness. So excited to talk about that.
Perfect. And we'll dive into that in a moment. But before we go there, I just want to give the audience a little bit of background on you. And you and I have met a little while ago, and I was really impressed with how you sort of orchestrate and organize yourself within the field and support female entrepreneurs, in particular CEOs. And so having seen it all in representing government and private and public corporations and startups and their leaders, I know you've got a real unique and vast array of knowledge about what works and what doesn't work, more importantly, which oftentimes is more important than sometimes what does work, right? It's always good to know what doesn't work for emerging companies and their leadership teams to really partner with any organization to set them up for success and to get them out of systemic troubles. And that's critical. We're always running into these roadblocks as entrepreneurs, and it's always important to know what they might be and anticipate and figure out ways to get out of those. You founded this organization, and what I'd love you to do is to talk us, as you started earlier, talk us through how this came to be. Why did you found, identify, and build Chameleon Strategies? And also talk to us a little bit about the name. I think you gave me some background on that when we first met, but tell us a little bit about why you founded Chameleon Strategies, your journey to identifying or founding the organization, and then we'll dive into some of the work that you're doing in supporting female entrepreneurs as they launch their initiatives.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much. So, I do have to say, since launching my own company, I really focus on when people talk to me and I meet new CEOs, I ask them, where does their company name come from? Because a lot of it has to do with the why. And I think it's really important when you're figuring out your branding. Where is that why and what is that passion driver really building? And that's exactly where Chameleon Strategies came from. It really was bred from a lifetime of, I've been a labor and employment lawyer for over 2 decades. I have worked with the government. I've represented government agencies. I've been the Assistant Commissioner of Department of Revenue. I've been sole employment counsel for over 14,000 employees for publicly traded companies. I've seen the crazy of companies that have gone from public to private to public. I've helped create the HR foundations for those structures, as well as for startups. And then early stage, brand new, they're right out of the gate with their Series A. So I've literally seen every type of evolutionary life path. I consider the good, the bad, and the crazy all along the way to be able to provide that unique, solid background in the trusted advisory work that we do. And that's where the name of our company really comes from. Chameleon Strategies really is a company that is agile and adaptable depending on what our unique circumstances of the clients that we serve. I think it's really important for CEOs, especially first-time CEOs, that feel like they have to do things perfectly and right out of the gate. And most often, a lot of the time and attention is spent on building that business strategy and figuring out the R&D aspect and all of the other important stuff from a talent management strategic plan. It doesn't have to be etched in stone from day one, but you have to start with that solid foundation. And that's where we come into play from a really adaptable standpoint. Our needs, a company's needs and our offerings change and diversify depending on the adaptiveness of the companies that we serve.
So this is really great. So given that this conversation is quite focused on sort of the beginning, if you will, the entrepreneur, female entrepreneur launching, getting all the pieces of the puzzle around her, and then building a group in an organization. Tell us a little bit about how you serve. Specifically, how can you serve? How do you serve as a trusted advisor to these first-time CEOs, entrepreneurs, who, as you said, feel the need to just have to do everything perfectly the first time, which of course never happens. We all know that. But how do you engage with them, and how can you support them? How do you support them?
Absolutely. So we start early days, and we create that trusted thought partnership. If I can just take a step backward for a moment, every organization that I've walked into had hiccups along the way because they were challenged in the fact that either their employment lawyers or their HR team members were not a trusted resource. They were very risk averse. And every time senior leaders, especially the CEOs, they went to those team members and said, hey, how can we do this? How do we build our growth strategy? They were always told no. So the end result was they either didn't go to those people that were supposed to be their trusted resources, and problems were created. And then there were minefields that weren't addressed, which turned into mushroom clouds, which necessitated me having to jump in and fix things, or they weren't actually educated at an executive level to understand how can you be creative and creatively get companies to yes, so that they can really build that dynamic organization and be bigger than what they ever thought of. And that's where we start at very early days. I understand very uniquely what are the needs of a company. Like I've said, from working with organizations at every different level, I've been able to experience and usually reactively fix a lot of those issues of crazy that were created because the companies were told, oh no, you're too risk averse. So being an entrepreneur myself, running my own company, I understand innately what are the business needs of an organization and how you need to remain fluid and agile to set a company up for success. I never tell a company, no, they can't do anything. I always find a way to get them to yes. And we navigate down that path together by giving them creative solutions, educating the senior team members that we work with so that they've got a special toolbox in their toolkit to be able to understand how to navigate these minefields on their own, and then be able to have me and my trusted team members as a real-time resource whenever they're navigating some of these potential pitfalls too.
So it's interesting because, as someone who's founded a company, launched a company, run a company, I can certainly say one of the things that kept me up at night, in addition to lots of other things, was the concept of just hiring, building a team, having people around me, surrounding myself with advisors and KOLs and people who could do things or new things that I didn't know, but I thought I was expected to know. So the bottom line being building a team, but building it in a strategic way. And one of the things, I would, if I had to sort of dial the clock back, maybe do a small redo, is probably bring in a strategic senior executive like yourself, an HR individual who, as you said, can do a lot of different things and can kind of jump in and guide teams and guide the entrepreneur in building the organization sooner rather than later. Tell us your thoughts, excuse me, on, let me just say a couple more comments here. a lot of entrepreneurs sort of want to save dollars, right? They're building their companies and they don't want to spend dollars where they think they don't need to. I can handle HR. I can deal with people. I can hire people. That's pretty easy. I'll just reach out to my network. But then we realize very quickly that it's an art unto itself. And we need to have a team, not only a dedicated, but an expert team around us, or an expert individual. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the role of strategic HR early versus slightly later on in a life cycle of a company, and why it's important to, which is better, which is worse, and your thoughts on that.
Oh, I'm super passionate about this area, Ramani, because what I find especially when I talk to new CEOs, they're right out of the gate. They've just gotten the financing. And they say, oh, as part of the closing package, I got this whole set of documents from the overpriced law firm, and I think we're good to go on a lot of these basic things. And what is really important for senior leaders to understand, that every communication that your organization puts out from day one starts to create your culture and starts to create your brand as an employer brand of choice. Do you really want to put a 28-page non-compete in front of a first-time employee? They're in their first research associate position. They're super excited. They've just gotten out of grad school. They don't have any intellectual property. They have no idea what any of this stuff means. And it creates that messaging that provides a potential negative tone from day one. So one of the things that we start working on from day one is, what should that messaging look like? And what is the communication style that the organization wants to create? And what does that culture start to look like? Because again, that touch point every step along the way is super important. As most people know, employee handbooks, they're not legally required. You are legally required to tell your team members about certain legal notices and laws and requirements. But being able to create a very cool employee essentials handbook that really brands you as a senior leader and really puts forward the workplace commitments and what the responsibilities of you as an employer and the cool engagement opportunities you're going to give to your team is really a great pathway to set a company up for success. So those are some of the early conversations that we have. It's also about, where do you spend your dollars? Early days, do you really need to bring all of these people on as FTEs and spend all of that money on your hiring plan? Or could we be a little bit smarter in creating, what is the skill set? What does that inventory look like? And how do we work on a strategic hiring plan to help provide the company a better runway for how it spends its money? So those are just a couple of the examples that we start talking about early days, and then helping the senior leaders understand what are those opportunities from a growth path early days. As a company gets larger, the challenges change. And as I was talking to someone the other day, they made a really good comment, and they said, when the mice live in the labs, all of a sudden you get this explosive growth. And with overnight growth becomes way more responsibilities on you as an employer and on responsibilities toward your team. So those types of opportunities we discuss in how do we create different communications? How do we offer different opportunities? The war for talent has taken on new levels. So companies, as they continue to grow and morph, they need to continue to be flexible and creative in how do they offer the best and brightest talent, the best way to remain loyal and motivated and want to stay with your team and grow on their paths to promotion.
So, it's interesting. There are several, so again, as an entrepreneur or someone who's been an entrepreneur, having realized the importance of having experts around me, people around me who could support me with all of this. And there are a group of people who don't feel they need that. How do you convince people that, wait a second, before you go launch this company, or before you grow this company in the way you want to grow it, these are some of the fundamental principles you need to have in place. And the reason I'm asking this question is, very likely the listeners of this, or the viewers of this video, of this session, are going to be people who reach out to Lioness, who use the resources of Lioness. And it would be helpful, I think, for them to know maybe understand what their blind spots might be. So talk to us a little bit about what are the blind spots that entrepreneurs have that you think they have, and how do they find you, or how do you find them? How do you make that link and convince them that they need to be engaging someone like you who can strategically help them navigate in the way you've just outlined?
That's interesting. Yeah, what an interesting question, and it's a challenging question because I think it's different for every entrepreneur. Sometimes senior leaders feel that they already have all of the tools in their toolkit, and that's how they've earned that job title. And sometimes, so it just takes time for them to understand that perhaps they need to have other people at the table to be able to serve as that trusted resource. What I have definitely found along the way in terms of blind spots are companies that really grow really quickly. The science works so incredibly quickly, and they're running to the next R&D. They're getting ready to pivot, and they don't have any of that solid foundation, and they don't have enough people, and they don't have any growth strategy. And that's when they start getting into potential problems. They don't understand what are the legal nuances of running a business at different employment levels, and having different sizes within your organization puts different requirements on a company and company leadership. Some of the blind spots that I've seen along the way is literally every company that I've walked into, no matter the size, has had some kind of a hiccup. Sometimes the hiccups were so incredibly large that there were lawsuits springing from every side of the organization that needed to be fixed overnight because they had hired outside counsel that had missed the ball and really weren't serving as trusted advisors. One thing that I have found in blind spots along the way is when senior leaders assume that they've already got things covered with the people that have been part of a closing. But then when they're asked for an emergency type of situation that they need advice, they're kind of given a ticket, like a deli counter, and they're told to step in line because these other organizations are way too busy servicing other clients. That's where we uniquely step in, because I firmly believe, and the team members that I've brought on board, is every person is incredibly important, and they deserve the real time and the hands-on, high-touch service to be able to make decisions, to move, to drive the business, and to creatively set that path forward, depending on what it looks like to the company. We work with people in 5 different time zones. Up until last year, when COVID hit, I was commuting 6 hours a day round trip to get to work, to get to a company office. My clients knew that they could always find me in the car, no matter the time zone, because they know that I actually walk the walk and talk the talk of being able to serve as that trusted resource. Because HR issues and employment law matters, they can't wait till the next business day, and they can't wait over a weekend, because people need to be responded to, they need answers, and you need to figure out creative resolutions very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, things change on a dime in the startup world and even in the growth phase, and having access to individuals who can be trusted and who can be, thought partners, as you said, at a moment's notice is so critical. And I've certainly myself experienced the situation you just described, Missy, which is, waiting for a response from a law firm or two, and just, you get in line, right? You get in line, and you have to understand that there are other clients, maybe bigger clients, better paying clients, and you just take a ticket and you wait. And ultimately, that doesn't serve you or the company very well. I want to talk a little bit about, shift the conversation just a little to talk about, and we addressed it earlier, but let's dive into a little more detail. You building Chameleon, walk us through your journey in doing that. You told us why you've done it, what the gap you identified was, but what challenges, if any, did you face as a woman establishing this entity and quote unquote pitching your your expertise to companies, so I think, or to possible clients. And I guess the question I'm really digging to get a better appreciation of is what were the challenges you faced, Missy, as you were building this initiative?
So I think one of the big challenges has been in finding senior HR executives and finding employment lawyers that share an entrepreneurial mindset, that really want to serve as that trusted thought partner in a professional services consulting company. And it's not a 9 to 5. It's not a minimum billable hours and then I get X number of hours off. We really are a creative group, and we really work 28 hours a day, whatever the needs of our clients are. And our opportunities and offerings look different. Sometimes it's a bundled services project. Sometimes we offer retainer services on a monthly retainer for people to be as needed. Sometimes we're just doing project work, and sometimes it's real-time as needed hourly work, which most other law firms don't offer that type of service, and most other HR consultancies don't augment their core HR daily functions with the strategic HR part and building that think bridge between the business strategy and the people strategy. One thing that has actually been, I'd say it's been a good challenge, and a silver lining, is that COVID has actually been great for launching the business, because very early days, a lot of the companies that I met with historically, they wanted to be able to touch and feel you in Cambridge. And they said, are you right down the street? Can I see your office? Because we really want you to be right there. And everybody was all in for being face-to-face all the time. Overnight, and I was right in the middle of signing a lease, and then the world shut down. So overnight, those expectations have changed cross borders. I have clients all over the world. Nobody cares where we're located, as long as you're available when they need you. My clients know that we can hop on a plane, we can hop on a train, we can be in a car, we can be wherever they need them. We can be on a call, and we can be face-to-face anytime. And they don't have to actually physically see us down the street, which has actually been wonderful. I think one of the unique challenges has been in partnering with female CEOs. The other really fun part of my business is I had been an employment and labor lawyer for almost 22 years, representing companies. And over the past 2 years, I flipped sides of the V and moved over to representing individual employees. And I focus my practice specifically on female CEOs and female senior leaders that have gone through some gnarly terminations or challenging times with their boards, or negotiating their employment packages when they feel like they can't be their biggest advocate, or they really don't understand what their market worth is and they're selling themselves short. I think one of my favorite parts about being a lawyer has always been about, I love being able to quickly come in and learn what I can about a person, about their life path, about their passion drivers, about their company, so that I can help set them up for success, whatever that looks like to them. And I can be their biggest advocate, whatever they need at any point in time. And that has truly been a unique opportunity to be able to help serve many women. And usually the male lawyers that I go up against, they find it very surprising that that's where I focus my target on. But I'm not here simply for the money. I mean, I've got 2 kids that I'm in the process of putting through college, and I've got a third that's dreaming of MIT in a couple of years. But I really do, my passion driver is really helping to set people up for success, whatever that needs to look like for them, helping them walk down that life path, helping to be their real-time trusted thought partner, helping them to think about some other things that can help them navigate through some of the potential pitfalls and growth strategies of growing a really dynamic life sciences company, especially in worlds where you get a lot of money, you have a lot of people have a seat at the table at your board that are all your venture funds, and you really can be like an island unto yourself at times. So being able to have an independent thought partner that is protecting your best interests and has your skin in the game, I think has been a game changer for setting my clients as well as my company up for success.
I mean, that's excellent to hear. And I want to just dovetail into the comment you made about the board and just investors in general. How do you, and if so, how do you engage at all with board members and or investors, or do you really advise CEOs in their relationship and interactions with those groups?
So I actually do partner with a couple of very entrepreneurial venture funds, and who have taken on a much more holistic approach to their investing style. And instead of throwing a bunch of money at a company and then having CEO expectations of, you've got your entire strategic plan set up for our first board meeting, they're actually offering a much smarter approach to setting those CEOs and setting those companies up for success by offering a preferred vendor list, whereas the companies, they don't have to hire myself or these other people that are on the preferred vendor list, but it gives them kind of a pathway for them to start thinking about, do I need these trusted thought partners? What are the ways in which we could partner together? And how can we take a much more holistic approach and a team approach to being able to build our companies? As you know, from being a super successful CEO yourself, Ramani, you don't need to have a whole C-suite of people from day one, and you don't need to have all of those answers, but you need to be able to know, who can you go to get that information? How can you set yourself up for success by understanding, what are those different decisions that you need to make, and how can you have people in your corner and save a buck or two while you're building that company?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you said earlier that really resonated is the notion of learning to not be an island, right? Like reaching out and knowing that there can be people like you supporting an entrepreneur as he or she, in this case, she, is building her organization. And I hope the audience, Lioness audience who's listening to this, understands the importance of engaging groups like yourselves, or at least the functionalities, the functions that you offer early on, and really setting precedent for then successful growth of their company. And I know one of the other things you spend time supporting CEOs with is really building their or helping them build their scientific advisory boards and all the advisory boards they need around them. And so it's really like you are playing this partner role to the CEO as she is really thinking about all the strategic issues, considerations that she needs to think about. So let's see. I want to talk a little bit about as we start to wrap up a little, Missy. I'm going to ask you this question about your superpower, and I think I'd kind of primed you about the fact that I was going to ask you about it. I have a bunch of things I think I could say about you as to what I think your superpower is, but tell us what your superpower is, but more importantly, tell us how you think it really helps you succeed in what you do. Because I will say, when I first sort of met you and learned about what you do, I had to sort of stop and say, wait, what does that mean exactly? Because I work with lawyers on one hand, I work with, people who are in the HR field on another hand, but I never had a thought partner such as yourself, someone in this role who could come to me and kind of combine those two practices, if you will, and to someone to whom I can turn to and have a conversation about anything, frankly. So tell us what your superpower is.
Well, I think some of my friends would tell you my superpower is creative mixology, because I love to create creative cocktails for every type of themed opportunity. But and my children would probably tell you that it's my photographic memory, because as long as you give me a yellow pad and a blue pen, I can memorize pretty much everything that I'm going to say or that a person says. But I think really what my superpower has been, I recognized this. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important. 4th grade, back to school night, my 4th grade teacher said that we needed to pick what do we want to be when we grow up? And we needed to write a report and take a picture, and she'd take a picture of us. Went around the room, gets to my friend Judy. Judy's going to be a teacher, Linda's going to be a nurse, and Jenny's going to be a mommy. She gets to Margaret and says, Margaret, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I think I want to be a lawyer. And she's like, oh, girls can't be lawyers. And she said, why don't you pick one of your other friends' types of occupations, roles? And I said, no, I don't think so. And I said, I think I'm going to opt out. And I didn't really know what that meant. But when I started thinking about it, I was the advocate for my friends growing up. And I had the ability early days to synthesize lots of facts and be able to put it into a concise way that I could explain to them whatever situation was going on, be able to help them kind of figure out, make their own decisions on whatever path they needed to take, and be able to be their trusted resource really early days. And I've been able to do that with employment law and with building the think bridge between a company's business strategy and their people strategy, and being there to understand and kind of synthesize out what are the issues. Here's the creative ways in which you can solve for those issues. Let's solve for X together. And it's done unbiased and independent, and that person can own their own decision making. And I'm here along the way to help protect your interests no matter what they're going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, you're really a champion, right? You are a champion, a quote unquote, a sponsor for them. You are sponsoring them without them really even realizing it. And I do, since you brought up the topic of how somebody, your teacher, said that you couldn't be a lawyer. I have to gasp at that, but it's not a laughing matter. We all know that in the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion is sort of a pervasive topic within our industry as well as many others. And one of the things you just mentioned right now, the notion of being a champion, being a sponsor is so important. It's so critical for people to be sponsors of other people, not just mentors, which is nice in and of itself, but really to be sponsors of individuals. And I think what I'm hearing is, a lot of these first-time CEOs, entrepreneurs who are becoming CEOs, perhaps don't know how to self-champion, how to self-sponsor. And to some extent, it's okay to self-champion and self-sponsor, but at some point you do need an external person vouching for you, right? Vying for you, saying, hey, he or she in this case is really good, is worth whatever, is worth what she's doing. So what I'm hearing is that's a role you play. And I think it's so critical, especially for a lot of entrepreneurs who are, again, as you said, being first-time CEOs, there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that floats around. There's a lot of, well, can I really do this? Am I really good enough? Am I really set up to do it? And I think you're there. What I'm hearing is you're there as their partner to just remind them of the fact that they can, and that's all they need to think about, that they can, and ultimately they will. So that's I think for anyone who's starting a company, having the function that you represent is so important, because it's just, again, as you said, having someone to turn to and talk to about all these issues that perhaps a first-time CEO can't talk about, because you can very easily become a sole person on an island. But great stuff, Missy. So I think we're going to end it here. I would, though, before we end it, did you have anything else you wanted to share with me, with the audience, about, if there were sort of 2 or 3 takeaways as a senior executive that you would suggest to entrepreneurs starting their endeavors or starting and running their endeavors? What would those be?
Great question. One thing I would say is make sure to surround yourself with a spice cabinet of advisors and friends that you can call on at any time, that won't judge you, that will offer you sage advice. I think a second thing that I find is, don't second guess your gut. Your gut and your instincts, especially women, have really incredible instincts. And to go with that, and make sure to question if something doesn't sound right, or if you feel like you're being undervalued, devalued, demotivated, that you work to make it right. I think the third thing is, don't automatically assume if people give you information, if they give you those packages at closing, if they tell you that this is the best package that you're going to get for someone in your market, don't believe them. I am finding more and more and more that, especially women, you're undervaluing yourselves, The market compensation and valuation information that I have shows that and proves that. Women are kicking ass. They are getting more money than ever from venture funds. They're creating incredible science. They're serving unmet needs. And they really are rock stars, and they need to believe in themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, and as you said, there is a strong business case for women running companies, starting companies, leading companies. And so self-doubt should be pushed to the side. Fully agree with that. Thank you again, Missy, for taking the time to join me today. And the Lioness viewers, thanks again for dialing in and listening to us. Again, my name is Ramani Varanasi, and I hope that you'll join us again next time as we continue our conversation with women entrepreneurs who are making a difference and really trying to drive change within the life sciences and biopharma sector. So thank you all, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.